Hi, it's Kelly Hampton. I thought I would share some regular posts reading from the Book of Animals, Healing Wisdom from Archangel Michael for the Animal Kingdom, for those of you that are not familiar with the latest transmission that I received from him. So I'd like to begin with Chapter 1. Thank you for the new subscribers. Appreciate it, and tapping the bell and sharing. I thought I'd read just a quote and then begin with Chapter 1, and then, well, I'm not going to read the whole chapter today, but you know, if you're enjoying this, I'll continue to go through the book. As the Archangel said, God created all things, large and small. God, infinite mind, created an internal combustion engine called Mother Earth to house 1/10 of the living organisms known in your world as animals. 1/10. Your planet houses 1/10 of the living organisms in the complete cosmos. Pause and reflect upon this. It is available in paperback through my website. The information will be down below in the description. It's also in an ebook format. Presently it's just in English. So I'm just going to begin and share with everyone. I'm a channel, so you know, I've been graced by, this is the third book from Archangel Michael. However, he and the masters and the light beings have shared other teachings with me over the last 20 to 30 years. I'm also a medium. But let's begin. Chapter 1 in the Book of Animals, Healing Wisdom from Archangel Michael, Healing the Core of Mother Earth. Michael said, where we left off was at the beginning, so the beginning shall become the end. In other words, as we say these things to each of you who might be listening, in this case listening or reading, hopefully, we propose that you pull up a chair and wrap yourselves in your favorite blanket and invite your children to kneel at your feet. And Michael says, I will try my best to unfold and unravel one of the greatest stories ever told, the story of creation, particularly animal creation. This does not mean for a moment or a second that I proclaim myself as God. However, like you, I have been created in the image of God's infinite mind, the one supreme being. But I do not intend to do my absolute highest work to make sure that this teaching seems very much like a story. I hope you find what follows enlightening, perhaps Michael says at times a bit troubling, majestic, developing and enveloping all of your senses. He asked that he'd like to insert a prayer before going on to the core material on healing Mother Earth Gaia. And the prayer is, every day I have a choice to make. I have a choice to be living and contributing to the sustainability of my Mother Earth, or I have a choice to do something toward her destruction. Either knowingly or unknowingly, I choose sustainability. That is all, nothing more. With that said, moving into laying the foundation, I feel as though we are very well talk about the life forms on Earth, especially animals of all sizes, shapes, colors, and dimensions, either once on the planet, now on the planet, or in the planet in the future, which comes at the end of the book, by the way. Just a few moments ago, Mother Earth Gaia would like to offer some of her teachings. So, as I mentioned, if you're not familiar with my work, I'm a second wave Palladian here to help anchor the Christ grid, and that's done in a variety of different ways. Sometimes that's done personally through spiritual counseling. Sometimes that's done through workshop training of healers in the different systems that are ascension-based. In this case, it's hopefully elevating us to some concepts that maybe you're not familiar with or you've not heard in any other texts or teachings before. And also there'll be some elements here as we do this regularly, if you like the idea, of healing codes that you can use. So if you're wondering how you can help the animal kingdom from your home, Michael introduces some star codes throughout the text, but there's lots of other information. It's the largest book that I've channeled. So Mother Earth, this is what I heard from Mother Earth. I am who you might say I am, might think I am. You might think of me as your mother. You might think of me as feminine goddess energy. You might think of me as femininity. Who am I? I am the voice of the energy of the mother who holds all forms of life upon her oceans, upon her lands, upon her skies. In your planetary system, I am known as Mother Earth. In other constellations and other universes, I am known by other names. My teaching is simple. It is very basic. If you can imagine that I have a collective consciousness like you do, then you can believe that this is true, that there are vessels on Earth who can tap into frequencies and share these frequencies with you. So my message is simply stated: be pure of intent. What does that mean? It means that if you are fishing from my waters, be clear of intent. If you are mining from my belly, from my land, be clear of intent. If you're doing anything that involves the soil, the water, the air you breathe, be pure of intent. Do your minds want to guess what pure intent is? She says, be intent upon love. Yes, it's that simple. It is not a whole lot different than anything else you may do in any other part of your lives. In fact, it shouldn't be. It should be the same energy that flows through the middle of my core, the middle of my knowingness, the middle of everything, flows through you in a similar fashion, and that flows through every living, breathing organism. Even the most feared and hated venomous snake, even the most feared and hated wild jackal has love as their infinite beingness. The healing that the angel was speaking of when he mentioned laying the foundation of my core, he is talking about the healing of the atrocities that mankind's actions have created, especially in the last 500 years. In many ways, some of the atrocities that fell outside of the vibration of love by mankind were not purely done by mankind alone. And in some cases, these atrocities were done by those in other dimensions. I honor and give grace to Archangel Michael for talking briefly here about other dimensions, other universes, so that your minds can begin to understand what I am saying. Many of you know this as you know your names. You know that there are multiple intelligent life forms that had visited me for thousands upon thousands of years, and some of them have left their imprint. Like a dirty shoe might leave an imprint, an energetic one. In some cases, a real dirty shoe print, by scalding my land in some fashion, my soil, leaching away rich nutrients and so on, scarring and digging away in the copper and iron ore mines that many of your underground civilizations do exist. Yes, underground civilizations do exist. If your family is gathered around your feet, and you're on a patio or a porch or outside thinking that the family is going to be enlightened with a book that is a child's encyclopedia about the woolly mammoth, it's not going to be quite like that, she says. But it will be a teaching and a presentation of everything which carries a vibration of love. As I speak for myself, it does little service to spend too much time devoted to anything that falls outside of love and spend too much time thinking about nefarious things. She says, if you have ever gotten a splinter in any part of your body, especially your finger, that is very much what the implants felt like to me: injurious, irritating, not belonging. That is why some have called me Mother Earth for the longest time, the dark planet, because these various implants and other scaldings that mankind or other universes have done. To my way of knowing, I do not profess to be any closer to the idealization of infinite mind, supreme creator, than Archangel Michael is. I'm not stating that everyone on earth damaged my soil, overgrazed my land, overfished my waters, or did any number of 1,000 of different catastrophic, challenging actions to the well-being of the animal kingdom. I'm just saying that there is something that existed, and largely in my time, my role as I see it is to provide a loving foundation. With the passage of the dates 11/11/2012, 12/12/2012, and 12/21/2012, the last splinter was removed. Are you wondering, how does Mother Earth remove a splinter? She says, I belched it out. It is quite a bit of movement in the Earth tectonic plates anyway. As many of you know, some of you live on top of some of the largest fault lines, so you're very aware of what I'm speaking about on some level. But what I'm saying to you is that the last splinter on that date, that the last date mentioned, was actually a seismic eruption. I mean it quite literally, that the belching was an eruption. So now, the time of rebuilding nirvana is ours at hand. Yes, of course, there are those on earth that still, by their own thoughtlessness, their malice, or intendedness outside of love, do things that strip and rob the life force energies from living organisms and vital elements, but their numbers are lessening. In continuing from the intent of pure love, there is no point in a text to focus largely where the focus is on the animal kingdom and the atrocities that have occurred. It is simply a new dawn, a new age, a new beginning. For the uninitiated, the core of my belly is crystalline in nature. There are two significant crystalline cores that vibrate in tandem and correspond to your magnetic fields of clockwise and counterclockwise, with multiple and multiple and multiple bands extending outward of these two major cores. It's a bit like looking inside of a tennis ball, she said. If you have ever looked inside of a tennis ball or golf ball that's solid all the way through, it has an inner weaving. She says that is very much like the magnetic fields. There are multiple magnetic fields within the core of my belly. I suppose it would be useful to share some more wisdom about my comment about underground tunnels so as not to leave any of you wondering. The splinters, as I mentioned, did one time cause the need to repair some underground tunnels, more like burrows perhaps. If your minds are wondering, well, what are you speaking of? I say to you very much as Archangel Michael and many of the higher councils of the angelic realm, the elementals, many of those in the spirit world, the leaders of the high councils, the holy ones, know that there are places underneath your feet that have had entire civilizations, and still do, operating fifth dimensional energy type work. Okay, so if you're uninitiated, the correlation there is the fifth dimension is the lowest dimensions where the archangels reside, and it's a dimension of pure love. My small contribution in this text from Michael is to help spread awareness that just as there are awakening star seeds, and have been, and as we're moving so that one day almost everyone will be in that fifth dimensional plane, so are the animals, of course, in the animal kingdom, and for that matter, so are the plants, with higher vibrational frequencies coming in. So, getting back to the text, Mother Earth says, okay, so these underground tunnels would also include tunnels under the ocean. She said perhaps tunneling is not quite the right word either. It's kind of a linear concept, but she's asking us to visualize underground cities rather than tunnels, because that's what they are. They're civilizations teeming with life that have been hidden from mankind's knowingness for thousands of years. The veil of secrecy is coming off as the vibration of love fully embraces my consciousness once again, as well as yours. She continues, What do your magnificent minds think of this? The scientists who may be reading this might be thinking this simply cannot be so, or listening, either from a moral standpoint or an intellectual one, or just a purely physics one. How can tunnels be created in molten rock and lava? I say to you, they are, they were, and they will be well into the future for the purpose of supporting fifth dimensional or higher healing. Because that's why an angel invoked me to come into this part of our time together as a source of healing my final words. And like your physical body, many of my wounds have been internal. Yes, I have outside, inward, superficial wounds. Those are the ones we described. And they are the ones you will see with your own eyes and have witnessed. When a forest is cut down, deforested in such a way that all life forms and the tall giants like the redwoods and sequoias, which are crystalline connectors, by the way, are denigrated, these are wounds. There are endless, countless examples to my wounding through mankind's existence. Suffice it to say that I too have had wounds inside that you can't really see unless you fully examine them, but you know that something isn't right. Sometimes internal healing takes longer than external healing. In keeping with the scope of this work, we are talking about the infinite creator having as many life forces keeping my poles on their axes. Just as though you may think of this in your minds, your own body has internal ways of keeping your internal organs working well. Those of you who are physicians will know many of these ways, but let's talk about bacteria. Good bacteria that your body makes to ward off an infection. That's very much like what I'm trying to describe here to each of you, that these underground tunnels and civilizations are working to keep me whole. The next section reverts back to Archangel Michael, and I'd like to continue sharing, and be sure to like and comment if these regular readings are more helpful to be live, where you can ask some questions, and I'll be available to answer them. I'd love to hear from you. Comment on that as well. All right, so I'd like to continue from Archangel Michael. It is very wise guidance indeed from your mother. If you are wondering where this is going, or if you're wondering in your minds, where is teaching of Father Sky, Mother Earth and Father Sky, I will say to you, we simply have not gotten there yet, as Mother Earth represents land and the ocean and the prairies and the deserts and the mazes and so on in a great majestic beauty. That is the time that I ask each and every one of you to reflect back for a moment over the last few years of your life, over the last few weeks of your life, and see what you might have done in your daily lives in regard to Mother Earth. Have you harmed her? Or how have you helped her? No one needs to see your thinking. If you want to make a list, by all means go ahead and do so. But Michael says this is not for public show, but for your minds. He says, I think you might be surprised with what you come up with. It is not, again, not my intent to make anyone feel guilty or shame. Everything begins with intent and focus and refocusing. Redirection is often necessary. I simply suggest that you ask yourselves what you may have done that either robbed Mother Earth's sustainability or supported her, and then make a determined intent to lessen and limit any of the things that you might have done that stripped away from her the vital force energy. For without a healthy planet, we can only imagine what life would be like here. It is true that every living thing has an energy force, and I ask each and every one of you to be grateful for Mother Earth's attempts to remove the imprinting of the bloody wars and decades of hatred and violence, man against man, where blood was shed on her soil and left an imprint, layer upon layer, jealousy, greed, injustice, etc. This type of energy creates holes in the energetic wrapping around the earth, which can also extend to the closest layers to the earth, which are only about 2 inches from the soil. So very lovingly think about Mother Earth as your mother, and think about a mother that has raised and sustained you, who has been plundered, beaten down, attacked, and never once folded her arms, lowered her head, buried her head, hidden from you, and said, "I'm simply not going to go on." Or worse, Michael says, "I'm going to turn my anger inward and cause a cataclysmic rift," because she could have. I must say this, as I feel compelled that when the last blood is shed on planet Earth, total liberation is what will be felt as an energetic shockwave, not only across your planet, but across all of the interstellar dimensions, thousands and thousands of light years away. There are many, 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 many thousands of light workers of all ages and descriptions. Many of their children are working to end this presently by loving everything they say and do, every loving connection they have, every loving thought they may have, by not eating meat, harming an animal, harming a tree, harming anything, harming their mother must stop. Mother Earth is rising from this wounded, splintered state to an exalted place of total being as a golden goblet. Imagine Mother Earth as a golden ball, which is highly charged, highly loving, highly exalted as a magnificent creation of God, infinite source energy, restoring her to her rightful place. Michael says, I have an exercise for everyone to think about and do at least 5 things that will support and sustain and propel forward the healing of your mother. And that would, I think, really be wonderful if this is moving you to share those things with us. And you can do that below in the comment section. If you have not written a letter to your own mother, a love letter, a thank you letter, bring it into your homes and hearts and do so with all the female goddesses in your lives, because Mother Earth very much represents goddess energy. Do it all. Act upon ways that your magnificent loving minds and hearts can go about improving. And then at the close of the day, I ask you to sit in reflection and ask yourself how you were feeling for having done so. And then do it again and again and again. Before we move on to create a teaching about animals, we must spend some time honoring their home. For those of any and all ages, here is another assignment. I lovingly ask each of you to consider writing down, he says, or imagining. He said we can talk about the reusability of things and so on. Use your voice if you wish. Head out to Mother Earth. Go outside. Go to your favorite place if you wish. Go to a convenient place if you wish, and thank her for who she is and what her feminine energy, her goddess energy, her own resourcefulness has provided you with. Use your words to tell her, I am thankful for anything and everything that comes to your mind and to your heart, such as, I am thankful for the beautiful wildflowers that grow down the street from my home. I am thankful for blessing us with clear, fresh water, even if you know in some places the water is not as clean and fresh just yet. By stating it in this way and putting these energy molecules into motion, you are allowing these molecules to form and be sent to the water in the here and now. Michael says this is not an exercise in denial. In other words, I'm not asking your minds to think of the dirtiest river and say in a mocking way, thank you, Mother. He says, get down on your knees if it moves you. Kneel in honor. Reach down with your hands and grab some soil and say, thank you, Mother, for providing us with green grass that we enjoy, for providing soil that is nutrient rich after all the denigration that has been done here, to still sustain plants and animals for my enjoyment and my enrichment. I think I'll share one more excerpt here and then we'll pick up tomorrow. These are examples of what your spirit may be moved to say. Some of you may weep and do it again and again, because every living thing has knowingness and intelligence. I ask each of you to kindly think about making this a routine, a sacred ceremony. Some of you, I feel, will make it sacred in the way that you use your own words. In other words, you could create a tradition that becomes special when you go with the intent to offer gratitude. All right, so I think I'll stop here and look forward to catching up with everybody tomorrow as we work our way through the Book of Animals from Archangel Michael. Thanks, everyone.